What's the fuss around Berachain? We're going to get into that today, plus meme coin news and early stage projects that are doing some big time raises. As always, I'm joined by Mike. Together, we're making Mike. How you doing, Mike?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Things are looking kind of boring right now in the market. I was tracking the prices, and right now, Bitcoin is just under 100K. Ethereum is just over 2,600 and Solana is around 202. And if you look at what happened last night in the Super Bowl, which by the way was kind of a boring game,
Blowout.
no crypto ads at all, Mike. Are you disappointed?
I don't know. I don't think we really expected too much there. I think overall the ads were really terrible for the most part. Maybe there was like one or two ads there. But yeah, I just feel that it was I didn't really expect anyone to really go big on crypto ads this year. I don't know.
I'm not surprised just because right now we're not in this euphoric stage of the cycle. And I think that's a good thing. I don't want to be in a euphoric stage. I want to be in this gradual building phase where we can still learn about real use cases. And one of those use cases supposedly is around Berachain. Now, they've been making a lot of splashes in Web3. There's a lot of anticipation around their launch. And they finally launched here within the last week. They launched their Bera token. They hit 1 billion market cap. I'm not entirely sure where they are now, but there was a lot of anticipation around this, Mike. I mean, what's all the fuss about around Berachain?
Yeah, they raised a ton of money. I think something like $140+ million from the most prominent VCs in the industry, including Polychain, Bretton Howard, Hack VC, the list goes on and on. And, they built a really strong community. They kind of just started it as these like bare NFTs, and then, pivoted into building this EVM compatible layer one that was built on Cosmos. And there's a, pretty interesting proof of liquidity consensus mechanism that that's meant to align incentives between validators, protocols, and the users. And it seemed like a pretty good combination of something that's pretty innovative in terms of what that consensus mechanism looks like. Obviously a big fundraise and like a very, very passionate community built around this kind of like this bear meme. So, I think there was a lot of hype. They've been building for a few years now. And, when things take that long, when you have a, community that's been around for a while and for a chain that has raised a lot of money from prominent VCs, that hype gets really big.
So I was trying to understand this whole proof of liquidity, right? Is what they call it, their value proposition instead of the traditional proof of stake. And proof of stake chains, the way you secure it is by locking up your liquidity. And my understanding that in this particular case, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't necessarily have to have it locked up. There's other ways of generating yield, and that yield can be more sustainable. So in terms of what it means for users, like all these like technical terms, ultimately what it translates to sounds to me like potentially like higher yields, more secure, more sustainable. So from that angle, it's all great, right? But there's some doubts. As always, when you have something that's largely anticipated, there's usually some doubts around the tokenomics. And so what really stands out to you, Mike, here? I mean, you've got 20% ecosystem, you've got initial core contributors, 16.8%. Investors are getting 34.3%. Community initiatives, 13.1. Airdrops, 15.8. And just community as a whole gets 48.9%. Are you seeing any red flags here?
I mean, that initial core contributor plus investors being above 50% is pretty high. I think, a lot of people were saying how, they're calling Berachain a VC coin. Like a lot of chains out there, they're calling VC coins. And I think going beyond this breakdown, early investors, they all have a vesting schedule, but they can also stake their tokens, their lock tokens, but they're able to sell their stake rewards immediately. And I don't think the community, likes that. And look, Berachain isn't the only chain that allowed that. There are actually a lot of chains that allow that. That's certainly something that the community doesn't like, where VCs have these large allocations of tokens, and then they can stake for the emissions, and then even though they can't sell their lock tokens, they're able to sell these staking rewards, and kind of hurt retail. So I think a lot of that. I don't know if that happened where but like I think that there's a lot of the retail that didn't jive with that. So Berachain launched, and it was down almost 20% the day after the launch, and now it's down, I think, about 60 or 70%. I think there's it was a tough launch for the chain.
This happens often in traditional markets as well, right? You have an IPO, much anticipated, and then a lot of times the price kind of settles in and the hype wears out, and now you kind of start getting more into real use cases and real users. I don't know. I personally don't see anything wrong with that, as long as you see long-term potential. If you're looking at something as short-term, I don't think this is like necessarily the best thing, but a lot of the projects that are thinking more long-term, yes, many of them have a VC backing, and that's not always aligned with those individuals that are wanting to make a quick buck in a short term.
Yeah, look, it's hard. This stuff is hard. Like these tokenomics, to design these things, to design allocations, to launch at a value that is kind of fair to retail, that aligns with longer term incentives. This is we've been in this space for a long time. A lot of projects have been building for a long time, and this is tough stuff. Like no one's figured this stuff out, right? And now that there's kind of other avenues for fundraising, like token sales on Echo or Legion, and there's a lot of options there. And it's going to be different for every team. Some teams may have had a past exit that in another company that they're able to fund building for a little while, building a product, and without having to raise from VCs. Others are not as fortunate and they have to raise from VCs. I still think there's no one right answer, but I do think that you really want to. It's a tough balance, right? You really want to have the long-term community kind of shared values in mind, right? And don't succumb to the pressures of VCs who might be telling the founding team to launch at this really high valuation, upon your token generation event. You really want to be very cognizant of all of these fundraisers, how they will impact your long-term community alignment.
And crypto is all about options, and for those individuals that are not seeking these types of investments, I mean, that's why we've got meme coin mania, and meme coin mania is just taking a whole different level these days with Trump launching his coin. And now you've got the president of Central African Republic launching a meme coin called CAR. And supposedly this is to help them unite. So meme coins now unite people, Mike, in case you were wondering what they're used for.
Yeah, I guess you can say that was always at least the initial use case of like, look, we went through a bunch of this stuff, right? Like social tokens, to unite people around creators. Obviously, the explosion of meme coins are, like you look at the celebrity meme coins, and now you see country meme coins. Yeah, and I don't know. How could anyone have predicted that, first of all, Central African Republic launching a meme coin, essential a leader of the free world, the president of the United States launching a meme coin, and then his wife launching a meme coin. It's crazy out there.
Yeah, this was definitely not on my bingo card for sure. And, along the lines of meme coin mania, now you've got Barstool, a sports founder, Dave Portnoy. He's pumping a token called Jailstool. Have you heard of this?
Yeah. So essentially something, I think he was talking about how he was trading meme coins and he made a bunch of money on meme coins, but obviously to make money, you got to sell and dump. And then someone created this jail stool, saying that he was going to go to jail, for trading meme coins. And he's like, all right, he embraced it. He bought a bunch. And he's like, oh, I'm not holding until we hit, I don't know, 500 million market cap. He threw some numbers around. So yeah, that's happening. What is even crazier is that amongst all of this craziness of meme coin, the voice of reason in all of this is the one and only Kanye West.
What?
Who is going off on Twitter about just, crazy rants, but he's actually saying that he has no plans to create a token because these coins prey on the fans with hype. Our savior, our industry savior is going to be Ye.
Yeah. Have you seen that commercial, by the way, that he had last night during Super Bowl? He was sitting in some dentist office with like a mouthful of diamonds, and he's like, yeah, go visit easy.com. It was hilarious. And truly, if somebody's definitely keeping me on my toes, it's definitely Ye. So I wouldn't be surprised if he changes his mind and says, you know what, I decided I'm going to launch a meme coin. Maybe that's like his tactic, right? Like catch the industry by surprise. Like he always tends to be very surprising, and that's like his whole thing. So who knows? But yeah, that is kind of very ironic that he is the voice of reason here. But let's transition more into like the government stuff, like the suit and tie stuff, which
Mm-hmm.
usually is not exciting, but for us these days has been exciting just because there's just been so many updates coming from the regulatory perspectives, especially around United States and crypto. But the SEC crypto task force is working to distinguish between crypto assets as securities or not securities. So, I mean, it looks like they're getting closer and closer to providing some clarity on this, which I think this is the biggest thing that's holding us back. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, look, I love Hester Pierce. She was just the voice of logic, and over the last few years in the last administration, and like, yeah, exactly right. Like this was, at least this is the starting point of like what every operating company in the U.S. wants to know, right? It's like, okay, what are the considerations when the SEC is going to categorize something as a security or not a security? How can the conversations between companies, operating companies, and the SEC, what's the best way to have that conversation? How do you register with the SEC? What are the guidelines for approving or disapproving ETF products, right? It took forever for us to get the Bitcoin ETF. And, it's really just, Hester, she's had such a logical approach to finding that balance between allowing teams to build new products, to innovate, and at the same time protect investors, right? I think she was like, I believe she was the one who was like kind of came up with that kind of like safe harbor time frame, build products and experiment without the SEC breathing down their neck. So I think this is all we've been looking for. I think it's just logical. It's like, let's get some clarification on the regulations and and just find that balance between being able to allow teams to experiment and innovate while protecting consumers.
And this is a large part why I believe Liz Warren is changing her stance on crypto. I mean, she's starting to say, hey, look, like nobody should be banned from banking services. I feel like she's kind of walking backwards here a little bit. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, she's moonwalking fast, right? I don't know what changes, but yes, she was the one who said building an anti-crypto army. And there was a lot of speculation that she was one of the big power players for Operation Choke Point, 2.0, where just all these banks just would not allow crypto companies to access their banking services. Yeah, she's huge 180. And I don't know what's prompting this. But yeah, obviously extremely welcome by the people in the industry.
Probably because she's outnumbered in some ways, right? I mean, the entire U.S. government right now, just about, is pro crypto and just trying to make this work. And she realizes that she needs to find a way to get on board. And so maybe look, I don't think there's anything wrong with being wrong. It's how you learn, you adapt, and perhaps maybe that's like the first step for her. So
yeah, she was very, very pro, consumer protection. And yeah, it might be that she can feel kind of the groundswell happening where, crypto companies are, or, the consumers, maybe want access to crypto, and these other companies that are doing, they're being intentional about building good products that, are not meant to, there's no like harm or intent to defraud customers. And maybe she's realizing that and then just walking back some of her anti-crypto stances that she's had in the past.
And the news is a lot more bullish than the price would lead you on to think. I mean, so we just talked about Liz Warren. Now there's this story about Alexei, who is the co-founder of Tornado Cash, and he's being released. So this is like complete 180 from what we saw even a year ago.
Yeah, I don't think he's fully being released. I believe that he's being released on like electronic monitoring, house arrest, and he's kind of getting some time to be able to work on his appeal. But nonetheless, like your point stands that yes, right, like things seem to be loosening up a little bit. And this is in the Netherlands, so I don't know what their approach is, but overall seems to be kind of loosening up. I mean, overall, like the EU is still pretty tough on their crypto stance, but at least we're seeing some baby steps, and in the Netherlands, but obviously large big steps in the US.
And I don't know if they explicitly in the United States mentioned that Tornado Cash is no longer illegal to use, or did they? Do you happen to know, Mike?
I don't know, but what's curious? I wonder what's going on with the other Tornado Cash guy, Roman, because he was detained in the U.S., I believe, and so I'm curious to see what happens. What's the update on his status?
Let's see. Is this it? United States versus Roman Storm?
Roman Storm, yeah.
Interesting. Not going to read all of it, but maybe there's a story here that mentions Treasury co-founder of Tornado Cash will challenge the U.S. Supreme Court for due process violations. And this is just 3 days ago. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So I mean,
hopefully they'll have their day in court.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a story to track too. I mean, we're starting to see it like we saw with Silk Road. There's, these individuals that are viewed as entrepreneurs and just trailblazers in this space that have been punished for providing a way for people to express their freedom of, what would you call it? Just freedom of not just speech, but just being able to preserve your privacy, essentially, is probably the best way to put it. And now we're seeing a little bit of a 180. So this is another one to keep track of for sure. Mike, you bring to me 3 projects that go through a series of funding rounds, and these are usually highly anticipated, very, very early stage projects that are building like real stuff in this space. This is like my favorite part of our conversation. And we're going to kick it off with Olus.
Yeah. So Olus was a pretty OG AI agent platform. So they're formerly known as Autonullus or Autonullus. I don't know how to pronounce that, but they raised almost 14 million in a funding round led by 1KX, participation from Tioga Capital, Sigil Fund, and others. So it's a agent creation platform, right? They enable the creation, ownership, and operation of autonomous AI agents that can automate tasks in DeFi, prediction markets, etc. And AI agent tokens like we saw, Virtuals, Get Big, and Eliza, AI16Z. All this was kind of, they did well a little while ago, but I think a lot of the hype was around those 2 that I mentioned. But they've been around for a while. They've been building for a few years now, and and now they've got a good war chest to continue building. And I think there's obviously a lot of hype around the AI space recently. They take a hit, but it's still very early, and they're building real tools around.
Yeah, see, they're also going to be at ETH Denver, which, by the way, I will be at ETH Denver as well. And I've got a subgroup going for Telegram. So anybody watching that plans to attend ETH Denver, I'll provide the link in the description. So that way you guys can do some networking in there. But pretty cool. Nice to see OAS on this. Now let's transition to Anoma, which is a Web3's operating system.
So Anoma is like an intent-centric operating system, right? So, we can get, but they raised $2.5 million and in a public sale on Echo, like we talked about before, right? I know they've raised VC money before, but yeah, it's the whole intense space where it's not just doing a transaction, but you're, as a user, you're essentially communicating what the end goal is, however many steps that might take to reach that end goal, and then an intent platform will just execute it, whatever the best route is. So look, intents are they're going to be very important for simplifying and improving the UX of crypto. And it's still, a very developing set of technologies, because there's a lot to it, right? There's sometimes it's cross-chain. You still gotta kind of have account abstraction. I think there's liquidity problems that need to be solved if you're making some of these more abstract transactions. Yeah, I think Anoma is kind of one of those one of those projects that have been around for a little while. And there's kind of building the underlying blockchain foundations of intents that are going to improve the UX of crypto.
That always seems to be the focal point, right? Whether through AI agents or in this particular case, intents, everything's about UX, improving UX. That's always the key, because that is the key for onboarding into crypto for sure. Last but not least is Row Protocol.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. So Row Protocol is a crypto interest rate derivatives market. They raised $4 million in a seed round led by Coin Fund with participation from Flow Traders, Speed Invest, and Oros Global. So this is like another DeFi primitive that really only crypto can facilitate, right? So they're decentralized, non-custodial platform that enables trading of crypto native interest rate derivatives, such as like perp funding rates and staking rates. So like I can make a futures bet on the Sol USDC perpetual funding rate on Bybit, and I can be like, okay, on Wednesday, February 12th, I bet that it's going to be higher than 0.0026%, right? And make a bet on that. And it's just another another DeFi primitive that is interesting. Like I don't know who's making bets on stuff like that. You got to go pretty deep down the rabbit hole for that. But look, there's a market for everything. And Row Protocol is just serving that market.
Aqua now puts out an amazing report where they monthly talk about the mind share of different verticals within crypto, and DeFi consistently is like top 3 and gradually gaining traction. So, I do think that to your point, DeFi innovation is definitely like full steam ahead, not slowing down at all.
Yeah. And I think, you made a point a little bit where it was tangential, but you said that the market and the narrative don't always align, right? So I think DeFi is one of the cases as well, where if you look at the tokens, the DeFi tokens are not performing well. They've been pretty stable, haven't done much, but the products are still being built. The TVL is still high. There's like you said with the Aqua now report, there's still a lot going on there. It's still growing, and that just doesn't reflect in token prices. And there's a lag. Maybe there's a lag there, but still, that's not stopping people from building interesting products and others actually using these products.
That's why I think it's so important for people that are wanting to learn about the space. Like, listen to the people that actually work in the industry. I know there are a lot of really good KOLs out there, but a lot of times they're reporting on the things that is written in the media, right? And I know that we quote some of this stuff, but listen to people like Mike, who is actually in the field. He's talking to these projects. You can learn so much more by being in the trenches. So if you are not going to be in the trenches, listen to somebody that is actually in the trenches. And highly recommend follow Mike on X, sign up for the Deep Ventures Substack. I'll include the links in that. Feel free to reach out to me if you want to be part of a Web3 community of professionals, builders, VCs. Happy to get you connected on that front as well. And overall, Mike, this was a great episode. Once again, appreciate you sharing this info as always. And if you found this video informative, give us a like, subscribe to the channel. We would highly appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.
See you, everyone.